IPR is your home for news, music, and culture, and the IPR app is your connection. Catch the latest news, enjoy music picked for you, discover something new about the state you call home. Download the IPR app, available in Apple and Android app stores or at ipr.org/app.
This is Garden Variety, a horticulture podcast from Iowa Public Radio and Iowa State University Extension and Outreach. I'm Charity Nebbe. Grasses, like other plants, remove carbon from the atmosphere as they grow. The way you care for your lawn impacts the amount of carbon deposited in the soil, and that's important. Quincy Law has made a study of this. He is an assistant professor of horticulture at Iowa State University and a turf grass specialist. Hello, Quincy.
Hello, Charity. Thank you for having me on today.
Well, thank you for being here. And Quincy, I think we need to start just briefly with an understanding of the carbon cycle, because I think it's something that people talk about, but outside of your line of work, maybe not a lot of us really understand it. So plants take carbon out of the atmosphere, go from there.
Yeah, so just to take a step back, obviously there's different forms of carbon that exist. And so the carbon cycle just describes the transition of those forms and so on and so forth. So as far as the carbon cycle in the turf grass system, so like you said, plants photosynthesize and pull carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. They integrate that into plant biomass, and eventually that plant biomass is deposited into the soil, which is one of the benefits of managing turf grass, is that accumulation of turf biomass in the soil, which eventually becomes soil carbon.
All right. And soil carbon is a good thing because that's good for the health of the soil, right?
Yeah. So one, it helps to reduce the amount of atmospheric carbon dioxide that we have. And so it can help offset some of the climate change potential from that. But also there's some soil benefits from increased soil carbon, such as increased water holding capacity, increased nutrient holding capacity. And so there's definitely some atmospheric, but also some soil benefits to soil carbon sequestration.
All right. And let's talk about grass specifically, because I know, we talk a lot about native plants and how good native plants are for our ecosystems in Iowa, good for wildlife, good for pollinators, all kinds of good things, right? So, but there's a lot of grass. There's a lot of Kentucky bluegrass. There's a lot of other kinds of turf grass in our environment. They also sequester carbon, though. They're part of the cycle.
Yeah, absolutely. And so part of that carbon cycle in terms of turf is the carbon lost through emissions. And so a major source of carbon emissions for managing turf is mowing. And so what some of my research has looked at is, well, one, how much carbon do these grasses take from the atmosphere and put into the soil? But two, those faster growing grasses that put more carbon to the soil actually need to be mown more often. So really it's looking at the balance between growth and mowing. And since this research has been done, robotic mowers have become more popular. And so I think that's another aspect to consider, is that some of our electric mowers may have fewer emissions in that regard. And so it's a pretty complex cycle there. But in short, grasses that grow faster put more carbon in the soil, but also we need to mow them more. And so the balance is what's important, because it's not just purely the amount, but also the loss as well.
Okay, well, let's talk about mowing, because in your research, you have found that the steps that you take to take care of your lawn affect this carbon sequestration, this carbon fixing in the cycle. So when you mow the lawn, what are the best practices that are the most beneficial?
Yeah, so my suggestions are to first mow as high as what your mower can be set at. And so that may be 3.5, 4 inches. And so first we want to mow as high as we can in a home lawn setting. And then second is to return our grass clippings. And so I see kind of the opposite occur all too often with a homeowner, that they intend well with a low mowing height and they collect those clippings so that it doesn't bunch up. But there's actually some nutrients in those clippings. And so best practice is to mow high and return those clippings. And then also schedule your mowing based on growth, not on your calendar. So it may be more convenient to mow every Saturday, but you can further reduce your mowing requirements by mowing purely when it needs it, not just on the calendar.
Now, everything about leaving your grass clippings sounds great to me because bagging your grass clippings is an enormous amount of work. But also tell me why it's so beneficial.
Yeah, so again, especially with that green tissue, there's some nutrients in those tissues, right? And so if we take them off site, we're removing those nutrients from the system. And so if we instead return grass clippings as we mow, not only does that cut back on our labor in terms of the physical mowing, but also it returns those nutrients back to the soil. Soil microbes will break them down and release those nutrients back to the turf grass system. So it really helps to try to close that nutrient cycle and maintain those nutrients within the turf system.
All right. So if you haven't already, stop bagging your clippings. But those clippings do need to be small enough that they decompose, right?
Yeah. So that kind of gets back to your mowing frequency piece. So if we generally, if we mow such that we remove no more than 1/3 of the total leaf blade, that's generally frequent enough that a standard mulching mower will clip that fine enough that those clippings will degrade pretty quickly there. And I guess while we're talking about grass clippings, I'd like to maybe dispel a misnomer in that grass clippings contribute to thatch. And so thatch is a layer of organic and soil material that's just not degrading like you'd like, and so that layer creates some issues. And so people really go after that thatch, and one thing that they think is removing those clippings will help reduce thatch development. But what research has shown is that microbes break down those clippings so quickly that they do not contribute to thatch in that manner. And so if one reason that you're collecting your clippings is because you do not want to contribute to thatch, well, good news, you can actually just return your clippings and you won't build up thatch from that particular method.
So your grass clippings are actually fertilizing your lawn as time goes on. So depending, of course, on how you take care of your lawn, a lot of people do fertilize their lawns. Is there still a need to if you have the grass clippings going back into the system?
Yeah, so what research has shown is that your fertility rate can be reduced over time if you consistently return grass clippings. And so if you look at standard recommendations, that's kind of an actively growing lawn, but as that young active turf starts to become more fully established and longer term, and you return grass clippings over time, you can actually start to cut back what your fertility is.
And when you do fertilize, you want to make sure to optimize the timing on that as well. What's important to think about there?
Yeah, so an important consideration for fertility is timing. So I understand most homeowners in Iowa, they're really excited to take care of their lawn in the spring. And so that's where we see a lot of fertilizer being applied. However, we grow mostly cool season grasses in this part of the country, and so they actually benefit from nitrogen in the fall more than they do in the spring, right? And so the same amount of nitrogen in the fall will drive more root growth than shoot growth, whereas in the spring, most of your nitrogen is being allocated to shoot growth. And so I would say that if you're only going to fertilize one time in the year, that about September would be that one time to go out. And so kind of along those same lines, that's the premier time to be fertilizing instead of spring.
All right. And we only have a minute left. You also want to make sure that you have planted the right grasses for the environment that is in your lawn, right? That helps with this cycle also.
Yeah, correct. So like I said, Kentucky bluegrass is probably the most widespread home lawn turf grass, and just managing for that specific species is part of it. So as we progress into the summer, if we should perhaps hit a droughty stretch, Kentucky bluegrass will want to go dormant in that time. And that's just a natural mechanism. A different grass, if say you don't like your grass going dormant in the summer, maybe consider tall fescue that retains its color into those droughty conditions a little better, but its drought mechanism is a little bit different in that sense. But so there are a couple options for turf grass species. And then lastly, if you're looking for a grass that's more native to the United States, buffalo grass would be a good choice there. But again, that's a warm season grass that's that's management is much different than some of our cool season species. So there are some options, but I'd reach out to your local extension office to get some specific recommendations to meet your expectations with your grass selection.
Quincy Law, Assistant Professor of Horticulture and Turfgrass Specialist at Iowa State University. For more gardening information and tips, please subscribe to our Garden Variety newsletter. You can find out more at iowapublicradio.org/garden. I'm Charity Nebbe. Garden Variety is a production of Iowa Public Radio and Iowa State University Extension. It's produced by me, Erin Stile, Caitlin Troutman, and the Iowa Public Radio talk show team. For more garden goodness, please subscribe to our Garden Variety newsletter. Just go to iowapublicradio.org/garden. I'm Charity Nebbe. See you next time.